Are you one who looks at a glass half full or half empty? Well, the answer may determine how you see God at work in your situation. Welcome to Truth for Life with Alistair Begg. Today we'll take up the teaching started yesterday on the Old Testament character of Joseph. Though his circumstances were dire, Joseph chose to have a good attitude. Alistair has titled today's message, Making the Most of It. We'll begin in Genesis chapter 39.
Let's trace a line through these opening verses. Let's notice four things about Joseph. Number one, he was protected. He was protected. Secondly, he was prospered. Prospered. Verse 2, the Lord was with Joseph and he prospered. In less than favorable circumstances, as we've noticed, Joseph was to discover that God was caring for him. The Lord could clearly have restored him to his house. His father could have showed up one day and cut a deal with Pharaoh or with Potiphar. Potentially so. There are a number of ways that he could have been restored to his home. But the Lord chose not to do that. He had lessons for him to learn. He had discoveries for him to make. And there were discoveries that he could only make in this circumstance that would not have been made elsewhere. You see, Joseph had lost his coat, but he hadn't lost his character. And if all that he'd had was a coat, then he'd be done. But there was a character inside the coat. Indeed, his character was being formed and was being framed in the crucible of Potiphar's control. And somewhere along the line, sooner rather than later, Joseph must have sat down and said to himself, I'm going to make the most of this. And the day that we do that is a great day because it is a day of liberation. Because what we do is we say, this is where I am. This is where I work. This is what I face. Here are all the bad things. I can't hardly see any good things, but guess what? I'm going to make the most of this. I'm going to make the most of this because I believe it's right to do so. And I'm going to make the most of this because I believe that God will enable me to do so. And so Joseph must have, as of that day, quit doing what is normal to do in a foreign country when you really don't want to get involved in things, when all you want to do is establish your own little Caledonian society, which is a Scottish society, or your own little United States Service People society, and live in a cocoon within the world in which you live. And you go around saying, sorry, me no speak Frenchy, me no speak Egyptian, sorry, can't answer your questions, can't speak Egyptian. I don't want to be involved, I don't want to get involved, I don't want to hear from you, whatever it is. Joseph must have decided, said, you know what, I'm going to learn to speak Egyptian. And I'm going to give myself to it, big time. Because this is where I am. He must have sat down, wrestled with it, said, I've got it. I'm Potiphar's slave. That's who I am. I used to be Jacob's son. I'm still Jacob's son, but nobody knows and nobody cares. What they know me as now is Potiphar's slave. So guess what? Although I am apparently Potiphar's slave, I'm actually God's slave. And since I am God's slave, serving Potiphar, I'm going to be the best slave that Potiphar ever had in his life. He's not an ideal boss. This is not a perfect spot. It is actually not what I was looking for, nothing along the lines of what I was planning, but here I am, and I am going to make the most of it. And the same disciplined commitment which attached to his search for his brothers in their shepherding in Shechem, about which we read in chapter 37, he now determines to apply to his role as a slave in the realm of a pagan master. Now, loved ones, there's a tremendous amount to be learned from this in these days, and I want to prevent myself from red herrings. But notice this. It is in the crucible of the most undesirable circumstances, not in protesting the paganism of Egypt, not in resenting the mastership of Potiphar, not in trying to reorientate the whole culture in which he's living. None of that was open to him or potential to him. The only opportunity he had for witness and for testimony was to do what? Was to be a good slave. For that was his job. So he says, that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be diligent, obedient, reliable, industrious, and conscientious. Anybody here who employs people is scribbling down these 5 words now for their next interview, if they're sensible. Because in the course of it all, this is what you would like: diligent, obedient, reliable, industrious, and conscientious help. Say you're there, you're there. Say you work the full time, you work the full time. When there's a need for a little extra, you can count on him, you can count on her. And that's exactly what Potiphar starts to get from this character Joseph. He just picked him up in the market. Someone said, maybe we should take this kid. And he said, fine, bring him in. And he brought him in. And now all of a sudden he recognizes that there is a measure of favor. There is a blessing which is on this young guy's life. Notice, Joseph didn't tell Potiphar that there was blessing on his life. Potiphar saw that there was blessing on his life. Verse 3, when his master saw that the Lord was with him. See, I don't think it is so much that Joseph is going around saying, hey, Potiphar, let me tell you something. You think you're a big shot? The Lord is with me. You better look out, Potiphar. That would have been insurrection. He probably got his head chopped off for that. No, he's polishing. He's doing his business. He's sweeping. Just doing the things that slaves do. And when Potiphar comes around, he keeps saying to himself, you know, there's something about this kid. I've had many slaves in my time, but this boy has something. Oh, to be that kind of person in the marketplace of life. Favor of God rests on the shoulder of Joseph. When God's blessing is on a life, we won't have to telegraph the news. It will be apparent, and sometimes, even as in Potiphar's case, it will be apparent to the pagans. I came across these little 4 lines that express it fairly succinctly, and, well, it isn't the style nor the stuff in the coat, nor is it the length of the tailor's bill. It's the stuff in the chap inside of the coat that counts for good or ill. See, you can dress up like John the Baptist, wear a big hairy jersey, eat locusts and wild honey and try and grow a beard, and you can walk up and down and you can roar. You can dress up like him without any influence of God, but you cannot speak like him without the hand of God. And some of us are in grave danger of relying on the clothes or the length of the bill of the tailor, as it were, and are missing the fact that it's the chap or the girl inside of the suit that really counts. And Potiphar was smart enough to pick it up. Now, can I ask you this morning, are you making the most of it? Are you making the most of it? Making the most of what? Well, making the most of anything. You making the most of your singleness? Well, no, I don't really want to be single. I was hoping to be married by this time. I understand, but are you making the most of it? Making the most of your marriage? Making the most of every opportunity, of your employment opportunities, etc. There's a fable told of 2 grasshoppers which were thrown into a pail of milk. And the first grasshopper began immediately to sulk, gave up, and drowned. The second grasshopper began to kick and like fury and work hard at it. And making the best of it, churned the milk into butter. And then he walked out on the top of the block of butter. Now, if you believe that, you'll believe anything. That's what a fable is. But it's a good picture. 2 guys in the same jail, 2 men behind bars. One looks out and sees mud, the other sees stars. Is the bottle half full or half empty? Are you going to suck it up or suck air, suck milk and die? Or are you going to kick and paddle around and climb out on the top of the butter? Are you making the most of it? For the glory of the Lord Jesus. To say to the watching world, with Christ I can jump over a wall. With God, I can run through a troop. Now, we may say that through our teeth clenched. We may be able to say that only after agony. But the fact of the matter is, where God's protection abounds, the possibility remains. He was prospered on account of God's goodness. Indeed, there's a lot of drudgery in Joseph's day. There's a lot of drudgery in everybody's day. I mean, it doesn't matter. You see the captain on the airliner, and he looks so nice with his starched shirt and the hat, and your shoes look so terrible and standing next to him, and you feel your pants could do with a crease and so on, and you say to yourself, oh, if only I was flying a plane, that would be fantastic. And he actually is looking at you saying, I wish I didn't have to wear this dumb hat, and I wish I was simply just sitting back and taking an orange juice on the plane, and so on. Everybody has routine and drudgery into their days. And the key to life, I believe, the key to fulfillment in life, is not in managing to work ourselves to the position where, as a result of financial prosperity, we are able to buy for ourselves the little release valves from the drudgery. Those things we may be thankful for and should, and for times of vacation and for the down times. But loved ones, the most successful people I've ever seen in life are the individuals who are able to take the routine experiences of life, the potential for drudgery, and to see the shining of the blessing of God on those day-to-day circumstances, whatever they are. George Herbert, writing in the 16th century a poem entitled The Elixir, deals with this in a very helpful way. In fact, with such help that it became a hymn in Great Britain. And addressing this issue of seeing our responsibilities as opportunities to reveal our dependence upon God and the evidence of God shining on us, Herbert writes, "Teach me, my God and King, in all things thee to see, and what I do in anything to do it as for thee." A servant with this clause makes drudgery divine, who sweeps a room as for thy laws, makes that and the action fine. Our whole consumer society and our whole leisure time preoccupation is to build a mindset into our existence that constantly says, okay, we know